Hi, good day. Shalom. It's Mayor Weinstein, and I'm joined today with Dr. Martin Sherman. He's in Israel, and we're going to be discussing Iran. Martin Sherman has advocated Iran should be broken up into separate states or autonomous areas similar to Yugoslavia or Czechoslovakia. We're going to be discussing that today. Martin, how are you today?
I'm fine, thank you. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Thank you. Yeah, I watched a recent interview that you had where you were talking about the future of Iran. And, there's protests going on throughout the world against the Ayatollah regime, the Islamic regime in Iran, that is bent on the destruction of Israel. And it was very interesting, your recent interview that you had about Iran. And I thought we could discuss that today. So, Martin, maybe you could explain how you arrived at your conclusions that Iran should be broken up, similar to Yugoslavia or Czechoslovakia.
Well, the mega example of a state breaking up, a very strong state, is the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union also, once the communist doctrine was proven a failure, the Soviet Union disintegrated into a myriad of states, from the Baltics down to the Central Asian Republic. So, this wouldn't be a first time event. It's not something that's unprecedented. And the format is basically a multi ethnic state which is unified by some sort of pan state ideology. And when that ideology fails, the state breaks apart. The ethnic identities assert themselves and take precedence over the pan state ideology. You saw that in Yugoslavia. You saw that in Czechoslovakia. You see that in Africa in a number of cases. Recently, one that came to light is Somaliland breaking away from Somalia and being recognized by Israel. So the breaking up of multi-ethnic states along ethnic lines in the face of ideological failure is something which is quite common. Well, it's certainly not rare. And sometimes it creates a more stable environment. Iran, I think, is an interesting case because if you want Iran to be permanently defanged, that would probably be the most effective route to go. You must remember, that even if you change the regime in Iran, there's no guarantee that in the long run the successor regime will be more amenable to Israel or the rest of the world. If you remember, the Islamic Revolution or the return of Khomeini wasn't a coup executed by a rival elite clique. It was a massive street revolution, and it had huge support among the public. And if you remember correctly, the original regime which succeeded Ayatollah, which succeeded the Shah, sorry, was a liberal secular regime which lasted for about 4 nanoseconds until until the Islamists took over. So even here, even if you do have a regime change, but Iran is left as it is, you may have the same scenario recurring. There's no guarantee that wouldn't happen. And so I think a permanent solution would be to topple the regime, which is a necessary but not sufficient condition. And the next stage would be to allow secessionist pressures to express themselves and break away, whether it's the Azeris or the Kurds or the Baluchis or the Arabs. Each would have their own separate identity, speak their own languages, which is being suppressed apparently in some of these places. So it certainly is a feasible option and a channel that should be explored.
Right. What kind of support in Iran does the son of the Shah have from the people there?
I don't know. I don't have any reliable polls on it. He seems to be popular, but that just might be the unpopularity of the regime. Iran is in a very bad condition. Its economy is in tatters. It's got terrible water problems, something which I wrote about 10 years ago. There's even talk about moving the capital Tehran to the coast so they can supply it with water from desalination apparently. But Iran is really in a bad way. And if it wasn't for the brutal suppression of the population, this regime would have fallen long ago.
Right.
But
President Trump, he made a statement, I think it was a few weeks ago, that he doesn't believe that the son of the Shah enjoys massive support in Iran, that he would be able to take charge if there's regime change.
He may be right. I mean, I'm not sure that he is a powerful figure with a lot of political juice. If you remember when Saddam Hussein fell, there was a fellow going around Washington called Ahmed Chalabi, who was flavor of the month there, and was never able to assert the support he had outside Iraq, in Iraq itself. So you may have this, but again, if you go along the route that I'm suggesting, a pan-Iranian leader is not that relevant, because you'd have a leader in a reduced Iran, you'd have a leader in the Azeri area, you'd have a leader in the Kurdish area, and so the issue of a effective pan-Iranian leader is not that important.
Right. Now, I've also seen some statements from Mossab Youssef, who has, he's spoken out against the son of the Shah, in fact, which I found interesting, because Mossab Youssef.
The Shah really wasn't that popular. And that's why he fell so easy. And
Right.
it's not as if he got up on his hind legs and fought for his position. The moment that things got a bit shaky, he got up and left. And we haven't seen really a sort of effort by his son to take over. He might be able to exploit the current situation where the current regime is teetering. But he's always done this from the safety of a distant country. So I'm not sure. I put it this way: I wouldn't be surprised if he isn't made of the material that you need for a pan-Iranian leadership.
Right. Is there any other personalities in Iran that are saying that they want to be the leader, or any kind of popular support for anyone else?
I don't think there's anyone really who's undisputedly prominent in this area. No, and again, if this regime falls, it's anyone's guess who will pick up the pieces, and
Right.
what pieces, and what pieces. When I say what pieces, I mean whether it'll be the whole of Iran or just the Persian area of Iran, with other people scrambling for leadership in the peripheral ethnic areas.
Right. Have there been other voices that are talking about breaking up Iran? Are you aware of?
I heard someone talk about this on TV not long ago, just a few days ago, but it certainly hasn't been the major thrust of international politics. Everyone seems to be focusing on regime change. It's more or less the same thing as you're seeing in Gaza, sort of getting rid of Hamas, but no one's talking about, what after Hamas?
Right.
All these ideas of de-radicalization, and no one really knows who's going to de-radicalize them and how you do this de-radicalization. If you remember, the radicalization of Muslims has reached as far as Australia, and not from from one native born Australian and his father who was in Australia for 2 decades. So the forces of radicalization are so certainly have a long reach, and I think just as in the Iranian case, where people who don't go through with the logic and want to permanently defang the problem, the same thing in Gaza, because we can talk about alternatives to Hamas, but the only way that Israel can determine who rules Gaza and how it's ruled is to rule it itself. And the only way it can rule it itself without becoming an oppressor of another people is to remove the other people from the confines of Gaza. And I think we missed a tremendous opportunity by not seizing on Trump's declaration that the population should be moved. And I think I think that is a tremendous loss of an opportunity. And I think Netanyahu should have seized on it rather than have delegated the idea of organizing immigration to secondary figures in the Likud and the Israeli right, because it was easy to dismiss it there. But if he was leading the charge, it would be much more difficult.
Right. No, 100%. That's the only war where people are not allowed to flee from a war zone. It's incredible.
Right. Exactly. You're right. I mean, Egypt has proved itself to be a very sinister and surreptitious enemy in this case. And far more pressure should have been brought to bear on it to allow the Palestinians to fulfill their human right of freedom of movement. I mean, it's really a very strange way of caring about the Palestinians by imprisoning them in all this destruction and demolition and death and disease. I think that Egypt hasn't been taken to task at all, certainly not enough. And the whole of Gazan population, I think, is less than just over 1% of the combined population of Turkey and Egypt, which easily absorb them. Turkey needs Sunnis there to offset the Kurdish demographic problem. And Egypt also needs building a new capital, and they need 6 million people to populate it. They could have brought Palestinians there who have productive professions to help build and help populate the new capital. And I think, as usual, Israel has been very remiss in bringing these alternatives to the table.
Right. Egypt threatened war if Israel pushed the plan like that to allow the Arabs from Gaza to go into the Sinai, for instance.
Well, I find it very difficult that Egypt would mobilize and open up a war against Israel for the Palestinians. The Egyptians have shown great to be charitable apathy towards the Palestinians over the years. They didn't want to take Gaza. They didn't want they wanted to imprison the Gazans in the war zone, which was unprecedented, as you pointed out.
Right.
So I'd be very skeptical if Egypt would risk a war with Egypt and maybe risk losing the Aswan Dam, which might just be a primary target
Right.
for Israel. Egypt's got enough problems of its own, especially now with Ethiopia. There's a huge battle over the Nile for
the Blue Nile issue. Yes.
Yeah, because the Ethiopians are building a giant dam on the Blue Nile, which supplies most of the water of the downstream Nile. And at the moment, they're apparently just using it for electrical power. But if they start using it for irrigation, that could be a death blow for Egypt. And people don't realize that Ethiopia has got a bigger population than Egypt. So by several million, seven tens of million. And so Egypt's really going to have its hands full with Ethiopia. I really don't know if it wants to open up a front with Israel, especially the present condition of the Egyptian economy, etc., etc. If they want to build up a tourist industry, I would be very. I wouldn't dismiss it completely, but I would be very skeptical about Egypt going to war for the Palestinians.
Right. Okay, so in conclusion, let's just wrap it up. In a basic way, what are the steps, in your opinion, to defang Iran?
Well, as I said, the first step is obviously to change the regime, to topple this regime. But and then I think you need clandestine activity, maybe by the CIA, maybe by the Mossad, to foment ethnic separatism, and especially if the center is weak, and it is weak. Iran's got its own problems with water, etc., etc. The dams are dry. There's hardly any water in Tehran. So any regime that takes over will have its hands full dealing with economic questions. I don't know whether it'll have the ability to impose its will on far-flung ethnic entities. So, as I say, first of all, you need as a necessary but not sufficient condition to topple the regime. I hope that will happen with Trump. If he doesn't attack Iran, he's going to be in a very difficult position internationally after
Right.
making such overt and explicit promises. And then once that happens, we have to turn our attention to separatist pressures in the Azeri region in the north, in the Kurdish region in the north, in the Baluchi area in the south southeast. It should break up into 4 or 5 ethnic entities of different sizes.
Mm-hmm.
And after a regime change, I'm not sure that the central authority will have the ability to impose its will.
Right. Very interesting. A lot to think about. Martin, thank you very much. We'll have you on again. And to our viewers out there, please share this on whatever social media platform you use. This is being broadcast on YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook, and also on our websites as well. So I encourage everyone, if you could please share this on whatever platform you use. Thank you very much. Thank you, Martin. We'll have you on again. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I appreciate the invitation.
Yep. Thank you.